Hi, folks. This is Lou, and this time I'm going to talk about something that interferes with clear thinking called the not invented here syndrome. Although I'm not sure I'd call it really a syndrome, but that's the way I usually hear it. It's a way of behaving that interferes with thinking, and if you indulge in it a great deal, will make it less likely that you'll come to valid conclusions and achieve your goals. So first, what is it? It's the notion that any idea or information that comes from somewhere else than you or your little in-group cannot be considered worth considering. It's just not any good because of where it came from. So this is closely related to the ad hominem logical fallacy, where you assume that something is not good because of the person who says it or promulgates it. Now, it should be obvious why this is a fallacy, why this is a bad idea, because ideas don't depend on their source, and data doesn't really depend on its source. It depends on, uh, their immediate source. It depends on where it originally comes from. Yes, if it goes through somebody, that somebody might twist it or get it wrong, but unless you want to assume that's going to happen because that person isn't part of your in group, then it may well be very useful, very valid. Now, for example, Americans are very good at ignoring what happens in other countries. In other words, they discount any kind of data that comes from other countries. Oh, this particular practice is good. Oh, that particular practice saves money. They just ignore it because it's not from America. In fact, a lot of people have gone farther. If it's not from my state, it's wrong or it's not worth bothering with. Why would that be so? What matters is whether it's reliable data. Now, yes, you can have countries that pump out unreliable data, like Russia, for example, or China. But those countries at least should have the actual data in hand. They just don't want to reveal it because they feel it will be to their detriment. So if you can get at the actual data, then why won't that be reliable? And of course, the attitude that it comes from some other country or it comes from somebody who's not in my in group, then it's bad, contributes immensely to the great ignorance that we see in the American public. Now, yes, it's natural to reject certain information that comes from certain individuals. For example, from a habitual liar. If somebody's an habitual liar, then anything they say is probably going to be a lie. And that's going to tend to make you think that the information or the ideal is itself a lie. It's not worth bothering with. But even habitual liars are like a broken clock. They're right twice a day. So if you reject everything from somebody, they must be really in bad shape. And I can think of some people in the current administration who I would be surprised if they ever said anything that was true. But I had to decide that by examining what they said for a while and finding it was not true, not true, not true, not true, until it became easier for me to just reject what they said rather than examine what they suggested. Stephen Miller is one example, but there are many others. So you always have this problem that, yes, sometimes the immediate source isn't worth bothering with. But if you project that to everyone and everywhere, then you've got a big problem. We have that problem in the United States with gun control. We have that problem with national health. Every other developed country in the world has national health, and you can examine the figures of what it costs and find it's no more expensive and actually may be cheaper than the way the United States does its health system. But still, people say, oh, well, we don't care what they do there. We're special, we're different. If you think that way, you're not going to be thinking clearly. Thanks for listening.